Hi, I'm Dr. Lisa Olson from the Smart Weight Loss Coaching podcast. I've been working with Julia for almost 100 episodes now, and she has really helped me grow my podcast from basically just my parents, my husband and kids, and my sister as listeners to over 17,000 downloads. I mean, the amount that she expanded my audience went way beyond my expectations. She really blew my mind. I have quadrupled the number of downloads over the past 12 months. Julia has been so much more than just my podcast teacher. She has been like a partner to me, really taking an interest in my program and helping me more than I ever could have asked for. I highly recommend Julia.
How amazing is that? I am so grateful that Dr. Lisa shared her experience. And if her story resonated with you and you're thinking, wait, I want results like that too, that is exactly what we're doing inside the Podcast Growth Collective. It's the place for online business owners who want to turn podcasting into a powerful growth tool without the burnout and without guessing what to fix. If you're ready to stop spinning your wheels and finally start seeing results from your podcast, I would love to support you. Head to thepodcastteacher.com/collective to learn more and to join us. And now let's jump into today's episode. Hey, and welcome back. This is your podcast teacher, Julia Levine, and you're listening to Podcasting for Solopreneurs, the show that helps online business owners grow their podcast to get more listeners, leads, and sales. Naming your podcast is a hot button topic, and folks can get really opinionated when we discuss it. But the truth is that your podcast name could be costing you listeners, repelling the very people that you want to reach. Now, I don't make that strong statement lightly, but your podcast's name is one of the most important elements of your entire show. You might think that your show title is clever, catchy, or totally on brand, but if your ideal listener doesn't instantly understand what your podcast is about and that it's for them, they are probably skipping right past it. And even worse, you might not be showing up in their search results at all. So today, I'm going to help you fix that. In this episode, we're diving into the 7 essential elements of a podcast name that actually gets you discovered and clicked. These are the exact strategies that I teach my students when they're launching or rebranding their show. And trust me, I have seen what happens when people get this right and when they don't. Because your podcast name is not just a title. It's your first impression. It's what determines whether someone clicks or scrolls past. It often determines whether or not you'll show up in the search results at all. And yet, most podcasters think about their podcast name emotionally and not strategically. So let's talk about the 7 essential elements of your podcast name. If you have not yet started your show, make sure any possible names check these boxes before you move forward. If you are already podcasting, rebranding your show with a new name to incorporate these things could seriously 10x your listenership. Okay. Essential element number 1 is good enough for now. Now, let me say this loud and clear. Despite all the things that I'm going to go on and explain to you in the other 6 elements, your podcast name does not have to be perfect before you launch. I have watched so many brilliant solopreneurs sit on amazing podcast ideas for weeks, months, and even years because they're caught up in trying to find the perfect name. And I get it. I've even been there myself. And I'm sitting here telling you how important the name is and also telling you to call it good enough for now. I realize how contradictory that sounds, but both things are true. The name of your podcast really is important. At the same time, the name doesn't matter if your podcast never launches. So it's important to call it good enough for now. Most successful podcasters change their show name at least once. I changed mine. My podcasting mentor changed his. Amy Porterfield just changed hers. It's okay. Your podcast name can grow with your show. What matters most is getting your voice out there now, not obsessing over a title that can be easily changed later on. So yes, listen to the rest of the essential elements that I'm going to tell you. Put some strategic thought into it. But don't let the naming process keep you stuck. Find that happy medium and realize that good enough really is good enough for now. I'm emphasizing this because I really want you to hear me. I have seen too many amazing podcasters hold themselves back because of the name, and I don't want that to be you. Okay? Okay. Moving on to essential element number 2, be clear over clever. One of the biggest traps new podcasters fall into is being too clever with their show title. And I totally get it. You want your podcast name to be fun, creative, and on brand. And if you can pull that off and still be clear, great, go for it. But if you have to pick one, always choose clear. Your podcast name should immediately communicate what the show is about and who it's for. If someone sees it in a search result, podcast app, or on social media, they should instantly know, this is for me. Because no one is sitting there trying to decode a puzzle when they're scrolling through Apple Podcasts. They are looking for a solution and fast. If your title makes them guess at what's inside, they're going to scroll right past it. Let me give you an example. Imagine you are an Etsy seller looking for tips to grow your shop. You see 2 podcast titles. One is called The Handmade Hustle. The other is Etsy Growth Made Simple. Which one are you clicking on to meet your need? The Handmade Hustle is cute. It's clever. It is related since a lot of Etsy sellers are hand making the things that they're selling. But Etsy Growth Made Simple is straightforward. It's crystal clear. You know exactly what you're getting, and it feels like it was made for you and the problem you're trying to solve. That's what we're trying to achieve here. And a clear name doesn't mean boring. It just means intentional. It says, I understand what you are looking for, and this is it. So when you're choosing your podcast name, ask yourself, would a total stranger who's never heard of me know what this show is about? If not, it's time to simplify and clarify. In my signature course, Podcast Startup Academy, I'd say this is the element that students get stuck on the most. We always work through it together to find something that feels good to them and is clear. If you are looking to start a podcast, I invite you to see if it's the right fit for you at thepodcastteacher.com/academy. All right, essential element number 3. Don't name it after yourself unless you're famous. I know, you are your brand. And in many cases, your audience will come to love your personality, your voice, your story. But when someone is browsing podcasts, they're not searching for The Jane Smith Show unless they already know who Jane Smith is. Instead, they're searching for answers, specific topics, a promise of transformation. So lead with that. What does your ideal listener want to learn or achieve? That is what your podcast name should reflect. I mentioned Amy Porterfield earlier. She is a household name within the online entrepreneur world. Her podcast is now named The Amy Porterfield Show. And that gets my stamp of approval because of the name recognition she has. People are typing Amy Porterfield into their search bars. But I could never name my podcast The Julia Levine Show because most people's reaction is going to be, who is that? No one is searching my name. Remember that your podcast title isn't about you, it's about your listener and what you help them do. Okay, element number 4, keep it short and sweet. Your podcast name should be 5 words maximum. I like to strive for 3 in most cases, but depending on the topic and audience, sometimes we need a little wiggle room, so I say 5. You are going to be saying your podcast name a lot in your episodes, in interviews, at networking events, and so on. A long or complicated name creates friction. People forget it. They type it wrong. Short names, on the other hand, are easier to repeat, easier to search, and easier to share. If your podcast name feels like a tongue twister or you feel yourself abbreviating it constantly, that's a sign that it's time to simplify. Okay, this one is a big one. Essential element number 5 is to use your primary keyword. Most people don't realize how heavily platforms like Apple Podcasts rely on keywords in your show's title. If your audience is typing parenting or copywriting into the search bar and that word is not in your podcast name, you might not show up in the results at all, let alone near the top. So here's what you do. Identify the exact word or short phrase that your ideal listener is most likely going to search for. That is your primary keyword. Then build that into your title naturally and clearly. Go with the most obvious literal phrase that describes your content. For example, my primary keyword is podcasting. It's front and center in my title, it's simple, and it's clear. And guess what? Most listeners that I have had one-on-one conversations with have told me that they have found me by searching podcasting tips, podcasts about podcasting, or something else that has podcasting in the phrase. That one key word could be the difference between being buried or being found. So do not underestimate the power of this element. Along those lines, essential element number 6 is to use a subtitle or title extension to add more keywords. As I just went over, keywords are key, no pun intended, to being discovered through a podcast player search. And while your main title should be 5 words or less, you can use a title extension, sometimes called a subtitle, as an opportunity to incorporate some additional keywords. This title extension does not need to appear on your cover art, and you don't have to say it when you are telling someone about your podcast. But it does live in your show's metadata, and that is exactly what podcast directories like Apple and Spotify use to index and to determine search results and rankings. This is a place where you can add extra keywords and offer context without cluttering your main title. I have an entire episode on the strategy of adding a subtitle to your podcast, so scroll back and check out episode 66 if you would like more detailed information. And that brings us to the seventh and final essential element. Make sure it's not already taken. Before you finalize your podcast name, check that it's not already in use. Most importantly, you need to make sure it's not trademarked. And then you also want to make sure that there's not already another podcast with the same name. It's a good idea to do a Google search, check out the .com status, and look at the availability of social media handles as well. Even if there's no trademark conflict, using the same name can create brand confusion, split your audience, or even cause legal drama down the road. As more and more people start podcasts, this can be challenging, so use your judgment and consult an attorney if needed. All right, there you have it, the 7 essential elements of a strong podcast name. Good enough is good enough for now. Be clear over clever. Don't name it after yourself unless you're famous. Keep it short and sweet. Use your primary keyword. Use a subtitle to add more keywords. And make sure that it's not already taken. If you're in the process of launching your podcast or thinking about giving your current show a fresh start, these tips can help you choose a name that works hard to attract the right listeners. And if you want step-by-step support to launch a new podcast with clarity, confidence, and strategy, check out Podcast Startup Academy. It's my signature course that walks you through every part of launching your podcast, from equipment to episode structure to showing up like a pro. You can learn more at thepodcastteacher.com/academy. Until next time, happy podcasting.